the super speedway.
For all the keyboard warriors, I'm going to do this in words of one syllable. The last green flag full screen break of this race comes right now.
Welcome to episode 270 of the Super Speedway Podcast, recorded Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. I'm your host, Eric Young, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, James Cush. James, are we the break that Mike Joy was talking about?
I hope not. I hope I don't fall into that. Well, I have been pretty I've been pretty punchy on Twitter lately, so I guess maybe I am. I guess maybe I am a keyboard warrior.
You were in a mood last night, that's for sure. If anybody's
Yes,
following James on Twitter, man, he was fired up.
Yeah, I made a comment there, and then I was really punchy in our group chat that we've got. I don't know why. Sometimes I just like to, as I said, I like to stir the pot.
Right.
So I think that's what I was doing last night.
Well,
it's all in good fun.
So was Mike Joyce during the pod on Sunday, and then
yeah, he was
more on Twitter. He was also arguing with a couple fans on Twitter this week as well. But I guess we can start there, James, because we got some race to talk about, but not a whole lot because not a whole lot happened in this race. Is Mike Joy right in doing what he's doing, or is that inappropriate for a professional broadcaster to be doing?
So here's where I fall, and I don't know. I'm curious to see where you stand on this, but I just think it lacks professionalism that he did that during the broadcast. I understand why, because he gets a lot of unnecessary complaints. Some deserved, some not. But he also he gives it back on Twitter. So when you give it back, expect the mob to come get you, and he didn't do himself any favors. Alerting the people who aren't even on Twitter during the race that this is going on. So I just think it's not he doesn't have to go into the muck. Mike Joy's better than that.
Yeah, I honestly, as somebody who works in the media and who deals with social media comments and things like that, you're better off to ignore it than to address it, because as soon as you address it, no matter how you address it, you're just encouraging those keyboard warriors, as he says.
Yep.
I'm mixed on this because so on one hand, I understand Mike Joy's frustration, and I also do respect the fact that here's a guy who has been in this industry for a long time. He's seen it all, and he has a stance on it, and he's not afraid to give us a stance. And we don't want vanilla people. Well, maybe we don't want vanilla broadcasters either, and it's kind of nice for him to, call people out. I prefer you do it on Twitter and not during the race broadcast. But
yeah,
and on the same aspect, I have a lot of complaints about the Fox broadcast, and we could have multiple episodes, which we have.
And we've been down that road, man.
One of my smallest complaints, the more I pay attention to it and the more I consider it, really is the commercial issue. Because really, if you look back at old races, the commercials kind of fell the same way as they do now. And NASCAR has done some things to try and make it so there's fewer commercials. I think my biggest problem with Fox with the commercials isn't so much the commercials, it's the fact that so much of what's going on between the commercials is also a commercial in some aspect. The Toyota, whatever, front runners, whatever the hell they call it, the Toyota driver update, that's what it is. That's a commercial. Yeah, the Coca-Cola Racing Family, that's a commercial. Here's an ad, we're going to ride on the roof of this car for 5 laps with no commentary. That's a commercial.
Yes.
It's all the commercials that we're bombarded with. But James, I can't play a video game without seeing, if I play a sports game on the PlayStation, I've got ads now. If I'm fortunately I'm a Mac user, but if I'm a Windows user, there's freaking ads in the operating system.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I can't really fault Fox for that. There's plenty else to fault them with. But I don't know. The race broadcast isn't the place to do it.
Yeah.
And it looks silly, and now it just created a discussion. It just made more discussion around Fox's commercials than it really needed to. We already had enough.
Yeah, and I think commentary like that belongs in a different format.
Do it on Twitter all day long. Yeah, do it in a podcast.
Come on a podcast or do an interview, do an interview with Adam Stern or, you know what I mean?
And look, there is a lot, and Dale Jr. does a good job on his podcast. There is a lot that goes on behind the scenes that forces them to do the things that they do that we as just fans do not understand.
That's right.
And I get it, man. I know Mike Joy takes so much crap for it, and it has. I mean, Mike Joy doesn't set the commercials. He's getting paid by them to announce. Like if he if he had a decision tomorrow to say, hey, let's not do commercials anymore, he's going to take that decision. Sure. But he's not going to say, hey, stop paying me so we can stop so we don't have to have commercials. So
and I you know, one person I thought of during all this week was Joe Buck, who gets more crap than any announcer on, you know, in any form of sport. He gets the most, you know. I think he's often seen as, you hate my team, Joe Buck, and you know, he gets a lot of crap for that.
Right.
But you don't see Joe Buck on Monday Night Football or during the Super Bowl calling out the keyboard warriors, even though he's, you know, getting dragged all the time, and sometimes deserve it and sometimes not. I just, you know, time and a place for stuff like that. I take it somewhere else. Don't I don't know. It's you're just flaming the fire a little bit more. You're pouring gas on it when you don't need to. So and just have your broadcast and you know, Fox, just be more professional. And like you said, Eric, there's stuff going on and we don't understand, but their broadcast is a little cartoonish and
literally, you know, they have cartoon characters.
Yeah. Yes, I know. So, and they've had them for a long time, but I mean, that's where I fall on it.
Yeah, I mean, Fox's broadcast isn't necessarily what you'd call professional, so I guess it fits. So one more thing while we're on the discussion of Fox, I'm gonna get on a soapbox again here for a second with something else. I want to talk about Danica Patrick, and I'm gonna go a different direction.
Oh boy.
Well, I'm gonna go a different direction than you think I'm gonna go. So here's the deal. Danica Patrick's done the last 2 races. We've criticized her work in the booth with SRX last year, a couple years ago. We've criticized her last year when she was on Fox. She's not great in the booth. She just isn't. That being said, every time that Danica Patrick is willing to come on the broadcast, Fox should say yes. And the reason that is, James, is this is a woman who left IndyCar to come try and race NASCAR. She got beat up in NASCAR. She had a ton of fan support, but she got beat up. She got beat up in the car. She took hits. She took crap from people. She was blasted her entire career in NASCAR about not being good enough. And guess what? Danica Patrick has come back to NASCAR to work somewhere in NASCAR and pay attention to NASCAR. That's good. You know, we should respect the fact that she's willing to come on these broadcasts and take the criticism because she actually likes the sport or the money or whatever it is, but she's willing to come and do it and give exposure to a sport that beat the crap out of her. So I'm not going to pick on Danica Patrick anymore. Let's have her on. We discussed last year, I do believe that there's a place for Danica Patrick in NASCAR. I would love to see her in, you know, the Chris Myers pre-race host seat versus in the booth, because I just don't think she's good at you know, the commentary stuff. But man, we should respect the fact that she's willing to come back. We should respect all these drivers that are willing to come back and participate in the sport. We should respect Clint Boyer, who retired. This came from DBC, by the way. Clint Boyer is rich. He has no reason to be in the booth with NASCAR, but he does because he loves the sport. Dale Jr. is rich. Dale Jr. does not need to sit in the booth and commentate on a NASCAR race, but he does it because he loves the sport. We should throw our arms around these guys and appreciate the fact that they are willing to be here and part of our sport after they retired. There you go.
Dang, Eric. Wow. I have no retort.
Yeah, and I feel really bad for the criticism that I've given Danica Patrick over the years.
I don't, but that's, I mean, she's just not good at it. That's fine.
But it's not her fault. I mean, I think she might
asked her to do it.
Yeah. So
I'm just looking forward to Kevin Harvick next year. But you know
I really hope Kevin Harvick brings some normalcy to the broadcast.
I can't really complain about much because here's the deal. They're so bad that I don't even listen to it. Right. That's just kind of where I'm at right now. So
I don't know. I'm trying to be careful what I wish for, because as there was a thing I shared. Maybe I didn't share it, but I've watched some videos recently of how bad ESPN was back in the day, and it's really easy to wish for what we don't have, and then we get it. I mean, Fox is the only network that has been with NASCAR since this exclusivity deal started.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do we really want to boot out the one loyal group who is stuck with NASCAR the whole way?
They've been a good partner.
Yeah.
I will not disagree. I just wish that they would try to improve their
I agree.
That's one of the things that I think is, the next TV deal that comes up. Whoever gets into the game, I really hope NASCAR takes a hard look and is like, listen, we know you're going to be paying a lot of money for these rights, but don't get comfortable just because you get all this money for these rights. We got to make sure that you are, doing a top-notch job, basically. Right. If you watch a Formula One broadcast, I mean, that is a very professional, well done broadcast. And I know I'm not talking about ESPN specifically because that's a whole. I mean, that's
Formula One produces their own broadcast.
It's Sky Sports is the ones who do all of that.
Except for Monaco.
Right, and Danica's on that, and she's not great there, but even still, they just do a really nice job, and I just think NASCAR could take a page out of their book to.
There's so much stuff that they do with F1 that I would love to see some of that in our sport.
Oh, of course, yeah.
There's some really good stuff technology-wise there that they do.
Yeah, and even the even the driver's eye cameras from Formula One are they're just phenomenal.
Do they blur out the steering wheel on Formula One?
No,
James?
They do not.
No,
they do not.
Okay.
No, they do not.
I knew the answer to that question, but
yeah, they do a good job with Drive to Survive on that too. If you're curious to see it in action without watching a broadcast. But,
right.
Anyway, it's but you make a great point. I'm not going to argue with you about that. I just hope that they don't get too stagnant, over time.
No, I agree, and I do think that there is some stagnancy there. And I do think some things need to be shaken up, and I'm not calling for people to be replaced. I'm not calling for people to be fired or anything like that, but just whatever. I think everybody needs to take a step back over there and just go, what can we do to fix this? And I mean, I know Fox has that belief they have all along of we want to be the fun broadcast and let the other guys be the serious broadcast. Well, that's fine, but I think the fun's gone too far. But has the fun ever not gone too far with Fox? We had Digger, we had the grid wall. I mean, all this stuff we've had all along. Like,
they don't do that with the NFL. That's what I don't understand. Like,
I don't know.
They treat the NFL. I'm sure
it's almost like they're making a mockery of the sport they're supposed to be promoting.
Yeah, and that's what I don't like. They don't. Yeah, I just NASCAR's got to maybe police it a little bit or something. Somebody's got to have control somewhere. I don't know who it is, but
right. On that note, James, there was a race this weekend.
Yeah, man.
It was we did some racing we did some driving around, playing follow the leader at Phoenix. I know you didn't get a chance to watch much of the race. I watched the entire thing, and wished I hadn't. I will say, so there's a lot of talk about the aero package, and this is probably in our notes. Yeah, it is. A lot of talk about the aero package. A lot of people disappointed because they were expecting a big change with the updated aero package for short tracks. Yeah. And this has been discussed. I don't know how many people listen to the other podcasts and stuff, but I've listened to DBC this week. I've listened to Denny Hamlin's podcast, and I listened to a good chunk of Juniors today too. And this was discussed throughout those ones as well. Part of the problem here is that Phoenix, I love Phoenix. I think they've done some great things. From what I hear, the fan experience there is spectacular. Phoenix really has never put on a real great race. It's just not a great, like, side by side. It's not a short track. It's a fine intermediate between the short track and the mile and a half, but it's not a short track. And to go in there and expect short track racing there is unrealistic. And so no matter what they do to the aero package, you're only going to get so much at Phoenix, unfortunately.
Right.
So I think it's too early to throw in the towel and say this didn't work. But at the same time, I think NASCAR still needs to work on it. Denny Hamlin had a lot of good points in his podcast this week about horsepower and shifting being two things they could really work on to solve the issues. Yeah. But yeah, they couldn't pass, and there wasn't a lot of passing in this race, and it stretched out, and the cars were tougher to drive, but they weren't tough enough to drive for them to spin out unless wheels fell off.
Yeah.
And so there you go. You got to follow the leader race.
Yeah, and I'm gonna wait until we see Martinsville before and God, there's not much I hate more than package talk.
Right.
But God dang, we got to talk about it.
Well, again, like Junior said today, we've been doing this for 40 years. I mean, really, we've been talking about the aero package, talking about different packages on these cars for 40 years.
Yep.
It's not going to stop.
Yeah. It's just these cars. I mean, yeah, you said Denny Hamlin had some good points, and I agreed with a lot of it because these cars are just, they're all so equal now. Yeah. I guess the benefits of the cost savings of having this new car are something, but
if you put
it's just
4
tough.
slot cars built exactly the same on the same track, they're going to go the same speed and they're not going to pass each other.
Right.
And that's what we have, especially on short tracks, because there's no, you keep lowering the horsepower and that takes away drivability from the drivers. So you're seeing, there's guys who are still super talented out there and they're doing a great job driving these cars, but there's just less variance. I mean, the window is so much tighter to squeak through with different things that make you a better driver, make your team better, make your cars faster. It's all kind of a piece of it. And we're seeing right now, I've seen a lot of talk about, the parity's gone, and you're seeing Hendrick kind of break through. I'm not so much worried about the parity of the sport as I am, I want to see, if somebody's going to be dominant, that's one thing, but I just don't see the balance, and it's not, again, it's not a parity thing. It's like you said, Eric, 4 slot cars on a racetrack. There's no variability of the drivers and teams being able to really break through outside of Hendrick being fast every week. That's really been the only constant thing we've seen so far. Well, and you take a car that's less difficult to drive and then you give it an extra gear so that when you do screw up a turn, you just downshift and take off.
Yes, exactly. Yep, and it's gripped up and ready to go. Even if you're trying to take grip away, right? You can hook those back tires up and you're taking off again.
Yep. Yeah, it is. So one person who managed to luck out thanks to a yellow flag, a very timely yellow flag this week for the second week in a row, William Byron gets himself a win in an overtime shootout. Was able to once again beat teammate Kyle Larson for the win. James, is this week's notes or are these last week's notes? They sound almost identical.
It's the same. Yeah, I didn't change the first bullet point because there's no need to. Yeah, same result for Bill there. Man, he maxed out playoff points last week and he dang near maxed them out again this week.
Yeah.
But he didn't dominate the race by any means compared to what Kyle Larson was doing out there. But right place, right time, and that team made another great pit stop. I mean, that 2-tire stop was so perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, he hit the gas and his tire changer was coming around the front of the car, and it was like a beautiful symphony of exiting pit road, and it is exactly what he needed to get in front of Kyle Larson. That was the difference.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It was get up, get right where he needed to be, get the spot he wanted on the track, and it was just perfect. I mean, again, 2 weeks in a row, I feel like you could just replay what we put last week and put it here, and we'd have the same kind of conversation. But Kyle Larson definitely was kicking himself for the way he raced that final restart. There's been some contention between what was said on his radio too. I don't know if you saw that, Eric.
No, I didn't.
It sounded like the team was kind of like they were kind of ticked off at him just a little bit the way he raced it, but they told him race your race. And I think he was a little bit more worried about where William was trying to get him on the high side versus kind of, running his preferred line there heading into turns 1 and 2. And that's when he got that shot from Reddick when Byron got that shot from Reddick down the straightaway, heading into 3 and 4. And that was really the difference. That put him out front and nobody else could touch him from there.
Prior to the caution, Kevin Harvick was on his way to locking himself into the playoffs for his final season.
Man.
Yeah. Caution comes out at the wrong time for him. They pit, and Harvick says he would rather be on offense than defense. The team takes 4 tires instead of 2, figuring that was the better call, and it worked out not to be, as Harvick was only able to get back to 5th at the end of this race, despite having a chance, with 2 restarts. But still not able to get up past 5th place. James, better to play offense than defense, or would you rather be the guy trying to block the cars with more or better tires?
It's so hard, Eric. I don't know. Like,
I don't think
have a problem
with clean air the way it is, man. I don't think you want to be behind anybody.
But then you've got, so to counterpoint that, you had Tyler Reddick right there.
Yeah.
And he almost dang near won the race.
But here's the thing with Reddick, though, is Reddick, and they said this on DBC, the TV did a disservice to Reddick this week because Reddick was up front all day long.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
And did not get mentioned. Nobody noticed he was there, but he was there the whole race. So it wasn't it wasn't surprising for him to be up there at the end. And guess what? He still didn't pass the guys with 2 tires.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And the crazy thing too is, you had Blaney, who ended up finishing second in this race.
Yeah.
I mean, he was one Kyle Larson block away from winning this race, and Kyle Larson maybe owes him a dinner because I think Blaney could have taken Kyle out, on one of those blocks because he had one heck of a run. And, same thing with Harvick. Things break a little bit differently. If he gets a few more spots before that last caution off the pit stops, I mean, he's even in an even better spot with 4 tires. So it's hard to say, that he screwed it up. Would I have taken 2 there? Probably. I mean, that's what I think Larry McReynolds was saying on the broadcast too. Was how did he say it? If you don't take 2 tires here, you're getting fired or something.
Right.
I can't remember exactly how he said it, but yeah, they again, hard to argue with the call. In hindsight, yeah, you probably take 2, but
it is really easy on Tuesday evening to say what the right call was.
Exactly. Yeah, but I was surprised, I think on my end, that some teams didn't take no tires and gamble it.
I'm really surprised.
Like, I thought for sure, like, Eric Jones was one of them. I thought he'd stay out. I mean, there's a couple of guys
especially because Jones pitted late, so he had better tires than anybody. Yeah,
like that would have been a top 10 move probably. He wouldn't have won the race, but he would have maybe got top 10. But I guess
honestly, if you think about it, James, they only ran 3 laps.
Yeah,
because we had a caution right away the first lap.
Yep,
and then they came back and they ran the 2 laps to finish it. So you really only got to hold them off for 3 laps.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, and that's you only got 3 laps to make it back through the field too. So I don't know. Like I said, it's easy on Tuesday afternoon to say that it was the wrong call, but Harvick certainly had one locked up there and threw it away.
Yeah, he did.
And gave barring what happens with potential penalties with Hendrick, which we'll talk about later, basically locks William Byron officially into the playoffs because he's got 2 wins now, and he's not going to get nobody else. Nobody else going to bump him out of the 16. So
yep, he's good. Yeah, we're not going to have 32 wins before the playoffs. So he's good.
So, and I don't expect NASCAR. NASCAR might take some points away from him, but they're not going to take him out of the playoffs at this point. So
probably not. No, I think he's locked in.
Yeah.
For sure.
We had a late caution with Harrison Burton spinning on the front stretch. Real quick caution again, 2nd week in a row we've had that. James, you got in the notes here. Any issues with it? I'm going to answer real quick. No. Personally, I feel if a car spins, it's a caution, and it should always be a caution. The only exception that I give it is if somebody spins at the back of the field and there's nobody coming on the last lap on the back stretch, then don't throw the caution because the field's going to be slow by the time they get back there anyway. Otherwise, I think you need to throw a caution. And listen, I get that people get upset over NASCAR manipulating the end of these races, but it was not a great race. And if you're in the booth and you're human, are you not ready to push that button at any notice to spice things up? I am. And is that a problem?
Yeah, I think so. You can't fault NASCAR at this point.
I mean, sure,
at least
for
the
fan and debris caution, sure, I get that, and any debris caution really, but a spin, I mean, you got to throw the yellow for that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, last week I wasn't quite sure about what was going on there, but if they're going to be consistent like this, I guess all I've ever asked for from NASCAR is consistency. So,
which we'll never get. So.
We'll never get, but we're getting close to it.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with it. I'm good with it. Let's see. Should we talk about the elephant in the room? Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain once again.
Sure. Yeah.
So again, we haven't had any announcements Tuesday afternoon of penalties, but Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain got into it on the last lap, battling for position. They went back. I was waiting for TV to ignore it, but they actually did go back and show the replay.
Yeah.
And basically Hamlin went in a turn and pushed wide, and Chastain was on his outside, and Hamlin just never lifted and put Chastain on the wall. And
So he took his hands off the wheel.
yeah, took them both back to the end of the field. Hurt Hamlin more than Ross, of course. Which, you go, something, whatever, racing incident. And then Denny gets on the mic on his podcast Monday morning and says that he did it on purpose. So
and now NASCAR's investigating.
Yeah, so precedent says that Denny's probably going to have a lighter wallet, if nothing else.
Yeah. Yep.
First of all, I guess, James, what do you think of Denny's move? And second of all, do you think he should be penalized?
I think he will get penalized because he said it out loud.
Right. That wasn't the question, though, sir.
Deny. I know. Denny Hamlin is the worst at payback, I think.
He sucks at it.
He does. So with that being said, I think he should get fined because he can't even do it. He can't even do it. He can't do anything right with it. So
right.
Yeah, fine him for all I care. Maybe he'll learn a lesson. I don't know.
So precedent says yes, he should. Based on fines that they've given to other drivers or penalties they've given other drivers for these same situations, especially admitting it, he should be penalized. That being said, I wish that he wasn't. I really want to go back to, I get that it got carried away, but I really don't like NASCAR over policing stuff. And I think that's what makes NASCAR great. Somebody said, or I forget who it was on Twitter today. Kenny Wallace says that Dale Earnhardt would have been fined 1 million times for this sort of thing. And then James's buddy Pete Pistone replies that it's been 22 years. Why are we still bringing up Dale Earnhardt? And I agree with Pete Pistone on that. It's a different era now. But that being said, that's what we pride ourselves with NASCAR is contact and self-policing and all that stuff. And I don't want to see NASCAR get in the weeds and start policing these things. But you know how you solve that is you just don't get on your podcast and say you did it on purpose.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's tough. I
You
love
don't get on the mic at the end of the race and say,
Yeah.
I brought the caution out on purpose, Dale Jr. You get penalized for that stuff.
I know. I like the honesty, and Denny's podcast seems to be doing what it was supposed to do.
I know. That's the thing that concerns me is he gets fined and he starts shutting up, and then he's less entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think he's worried about a fine as much as, I think he knows he's going to get fined.
Yeah.
He just says it anyway. So hopefully, it's not like he's going to get fined every week for saying stuff. I really hope the Ross Denny thing, and Denny says it's over. I'm so tired of it. I'm tired of these two yahoos.
Oh, I'm not, man. I want this. Want this, James. I want drivers to dislike each other.
It's just so. I don't know, man.
Here's my theory. You want to hear my theory on this?
It lacks pizzazz. You know what I mean? That's the best way to say it.
Do you want to know what my theory is?
Sure.
My theory is that Denny screwed up going into the turn. I think he did not lay off Ross because he knew who was up there, but I don't think he meant to do what he did. I don't think it was intentional. I think after the fact, Denny knows he's going to get fined for it, but he figures if he mouths off and says that he did it on purpose, that it ends it. Now he's got his payback back. The fans get off his back. Ross gets off his back, and it's over with. So he's going to take the penalty. Denny doesn't say stuff. There's no way he said that on the podcast and didn't think about it and plan it out in advance. He knows what he's saying. He's very calculated. I think he takes the fine to save face on this.
And how many times are we all ever talking about the 20 to 30th place race cars
right
at the end of a race too? I think that might have had something to do with it. Like he saw an opportunity there too. So I don't know. These two are just. I like what you said, Eric. That rivalries are good, but this one just doesn't have the.
It's very childish.
Yeah, exactly. Like
it's not Carl Edwards and Tony Stewart giving jabs at each other racing for the championship. It's
the stakes are incredibly low at this point. Like just move on and race and let. It's just not natural. Like it's just
they both look stupid because they're so bad at it.
I know. That's the thing. Like Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards. Okay, that's maybe one of the best single stretch of rivalry we've ever had, and it's because it was organic.
Yep.
Like you had one guy trying to hang on to the championship, and you had one guy coming for it, and it was just naturally blooming into a really great storyline heading into the championship. These guys are just trying to wreck each other every time they see him, and it's like, okay,
yeah.
And like you said, they're bad at it. Right. So can we just move on? Like I would rather have these two door banging for a race win than seeing them crash out of 15th place.
Yeah, I agree.
Like that's not doing anything for me at that point.
I agree. And by the way, it's not over, James, because the first time one of them bumps the other one, it's gonna rekindle. So
right,
it's not over.
Right, it's never over.
I'm trying to think here if there's anything else really worth mentioning in this race. We kind of talked about the top 5 guys. Eric Almirola has to sit 2 laps for a broken wheel, which is really odd. The wheel was still bolted to the car. So I don't know what happened there, but that happened. Otherwise kind of just a race, man. Just a kind of a parade of cars going around the track.
Yeah.
Chase Briscoe gets a 7th place finish, so a good run for SHR finally.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that because outside of Eric Almirola, Ryan Preece was their worst finisher in 12th out of the top 3. I mean, that's a
really
good day, especially
what they've been.
They've been struggling. Yeah, they've been struggling quite a bit, and we mentioned Blaney. I was gonna ask you what you think about where Ty Gibbs is at right now, 4 races into his actual rookie campaign.
I'm a little surprised, actually.
I thought he'd be doing a little bit better.
Yeah, well, I mean, I predicted he'd win in the first 10 races, and I mean, we still got a ways to go, but it's not looking real great. I mean, we're going to go to COTA, which I think is going to be a good track for him. But I don't know. No, I mean, he's not where I expected him to be. But at the same time, again, it just goes to show you that this is a tough series. It's hard to do well in this series. I did think with the experience that Gibbs got last year, though, I thought he was going to get a head start coming in this year and maybe be able to really turn things up. Honestly, the one I want to draw attention to, and I'm glad you mentioned Gibbs, because it's worth mentioning Josh Berry gets 10th place finish in Chase Elliott's car after struggling last week, but getting a chance to work it this week, and he finishes better than expected. So that's good for him. His auditioning for the 77 for next year looks pretty good. Yeah, definitely.
I think that's what's going on there.
Right.
I was gonna say too, Brad Keselowski had a really good race. Doesn't have the finish. Finishing 18th,
both of those cars did well actually throughout this race.
Yeah, they were good. Yeah, they were good. Those were good. That was a good race for those cars. Brad.
Well, Brad had a shifting issue at the end of the race. By the way, that's why he finished so far back, because they couldn't get the car in gear.
But if you do the eyeball test, and I'm not doing the data test here,
right?
But if you do the eyeball test last year compared to this year, that RFK bunch is leaps and bounds ahead of where they were at this point last year, and that's coming off. Yeah, that's coming off sweeping the duels at Daytona, and they're still better than they were last year. So,
well, they swept the duels at Daytona and then fell off the map last year.
Yeah, I think Brad's going to win a race.
Oh yeah.
Before too long here, he's showing. I mean, they're showing speed. They're showing the whole team's showing speed. That's good to see.
Good super speedway racer could be this weekend.
Possibly. Yeah.
There you go. NASCAR Xfinity Series was in action as well. Sammy Smith, youngest driver to win in the Xfinity Series at Phoenix, put on a beautiful performance in this race. Had a fast car all day.
Just kicked butt, dude.
Yeah. Did the right things. 92 laps led on the day. Cole Custer leads 38. Kind of saw a glimpse of what Cole Custer could potentially be in this series again this year, getting his feet back into it.
Yeah, he led at Auto Club a ton too. Yeah. So yeah, he's fast. Just didn't have the finish on this day, but still a good day.
Yeah. Austin Hill was terrible. Finished 7th. Just kidding. That's a joke, by the way. 22 laps led for Austin Hill, so they continue their strong performance there. Kyle Busch tries to take out his teammate on the last lap. That was interesting.
Justin Allgaier won the first 2 stages and then crashed out on lap 178.
Well, let's reiterate. He didn't crash out. He got taken out by his teammate, Brandon Jones.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we also had
the JR cars were all over each other this weekend.
We had
Sam Mayer took out Josh Berry.
Yeah, Sam Mayer wrecked Berry. They couldn't get away from each other. It was kind of a mess for Junior Motorsports. And Dale Jr. talked a little bit on his podcast today that one of the things that affected them is, so last year, obviously JRM was dominant in the Xfinity Series. Well, apparently there's a shot at Pocono, is what he said, coming down the front stretch where the cars are racing right straight at the camera. And NASCAR was looking at those videos and seeing how the JRM cars were crab walking. And so they changed stuff in the rear suspension of the cars, disallowed some stuff. And so basically, I think he said the trailing arm used to be multiple parts. And so you could manipulate some of those parts a little bit. And now it's a single piece, and they don't have that advantage anymore that they had.
Interesting.
So that's what's costing the JRM cars. So they've got to catch back up now. And catching up is not going to work if you keep running into each other. So
that's right. Yeah.
You got some strong personalities there. And, you've got guys that, Brandon Jones is not Josh Berry's teammate. Brandon Jones is in that ride because that's the ride that they purchased for him, essentially. He's not a JRM guy.
Yeah, he's just in a JRM car, yeah.
Yeah, so you got
guys
Josh
Berry's trying to do something.
Right.
So
you got guys here that are looking out for themselves more than the team at this point. And, and Junior's not one that's wants to step in and shake things up either. So he's going to be pretty careful about it. And that's what you get then, is you get this type of situation. And unless somebody gets a handle of it, it's going to keep happening. So
should have been a fun meeting yesterday, though.
Oh, boy.
I would have liked to have seen how that went.
Yeah.
I wonder if Kelly runs that meeting. Kelly might run that meeting.
Worth mentioning, Ryan Truex, too, equals his best finish ever in the Xfinity Series in his part-time ride with Joe Gibbs Racing. Obviously, Joe Gibbs Racing has not lost anything with the rule changes in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, no, they're fine.
Still stronger than ever. John Hunter Nemechek even did well with a car that was damaged from before the race started.
Yeah, I like that. That was kind of cool. They taped it up and wrote Super on it. That was pretty sweet. Yeah.
Good. And then Chandler Smith finishes fifth still after the trouble with Kyle Busch. And so second week in a row, Chandler Smith is beating Kyle Busch in the same equipment.
His old boss.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That just shows that kid's strong. He's doing better, I think, in that seat than I expected him to do. So,
yeah, he, gosh, yeah, he's in his age 21 season now. It's so weird. He's 12 years younger than Josh Berry. So we gotta, but I remember hearing about him coming up through the ranks of local, short track racing. But everybody's like, yep, keep an eye on Chandler Smith. And it never really came to fruition, but you can start to see now as he's maturing in this ride. Gosh, Eric, we've run, four races so far in the Xfinity Series. He's three top fives, average finish of sixth. So, he's, good equipment. Look at him go here. He's going to win some races in this Xfinity Series season. He might be a real threat for the championship.
Yeah, I think so.
Early on, he's really showing his way here. And I know last week got away from him a little bit, but, if he starts to light the world on fire, could be interesting to see what his future holds here as he, looks to maybe get into the Cup Series here in the next year or two.
And I would argue that with Kyle Busch running in that same equipment and Chandler outperforming him, or where Kyle Busch is running in that equipment, that Chandler is that equipment is not equal to what those Joe Gibbs Racing cars are running, and maybe even the RCR cars. Sheldon Creed gets a third place finish of this race. Again, I mentioned Austin Hill did well. So he's probably, carrying that car on his back a little bit right now too. So if he had equal equipment, he might be even better. So that just goes to show you what we might expect out of him.
Exactly.
All right. I think that wraps up our race discussion, James.
I think so.
Let's talk some news items. We will talk Hendrick Motorsports first. As we alluded to earlier, potential penalties coming for Hendrick Motorsports. We don't know yet. The NASCAR confiscated the hood louvers, which are the vents basically in the hood of the car, from Hendrick Motorsports. All four cars this weekend. They also confiscated. I've heard mixed reports whether it was all of Colleague or just Justin Haley's car from Colleague, but they also confiscated those as well. So the expectation is that They had modified them in some aspect, and the precedent has been set for some pretty hefty penalties if that's the case. We didn't see anything announced today, which usually Tuesday is when we see that, but we sometimes do see it Wednesday. The other question is maybe it's just something NASCAR didn't like, and they're going to just say, don't do this. You can't modify the parts. There are some issues with this car, apparently, and they talked about it. I think Denny Hamlin talked about it on his podcast, that basically there are hundreds of manufacturers that make the parts for these cars. And these parts all then have to fit together, and they don't always fit together correctly. And sometimes NASCAR will say, okay, you can shim this or do this to this part to make it fit. And other times they're like, okay, we know it's not quite right, but don't touch it, leave it alone. And supposedly that's what happened with these louvers, is they were told to leave it alone. And something happened with Hendrick that they didn't like. Now, they did let Hendrick finish practice with these hood louvers in, and then confiscated them and had him change it before the race. So, a lot of up in the air. I think everybody's expecting penalties. Everybody's expecting hefty penalties. What do you think, James? I mean,
yeah, I think it's tough because they took care of it before the race.
Right.
So part of me is wondering if they're not going to hammer them as hard as maybe we think we are. We think they will, but Jeff Gordon seems to think that something big's coming. But
yeah.
I'm guessing it's going to be probably 100 points per car, and possibly some playoff points here, plus a monetary fine. And I don't know, maybe the crew chiefs are all going to get tossed too. I think
RFK really sets the precedent from last year. You know.
Yeah, and think about Denny Hamlin's disqualification last year too, and that was during a race.
Yeah.
And
like Denny said, they didn't modify a part. Joe Gibbs Racing didn't modify a part. They just made something thicker, made the decal thicker.
Yeah, they goofed with it a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, part of me wonders, like, if it is a manufacturing flaw, do you really need to hammer the teams, or was it now if it was intentional and they were really screwing with something? NASCAR is going to be able to tell us that, and I hope for our sake on the on our side of things, I hope NASCAR is fully full clarity. They were manipulating these parts, and here's why we hammered them. But if NASCAR comes out and said the parts were, I don't know, weren't what they were supposed to be, and that's it, and then they hammer them, I just like to make sure that it's known exactly what happened here. Yeah.
I mean, fortunately they took them off, and they really slowed those Hendrick cars down this weekend. So
yeah, I mean, yeah. And if you're William Byron, like he's driving away with the playoff lead right now.
Yeah.
You gotta hope that he doesn't get, like Kyle Larson. It doesn't matter right now. Like,
right.
Go ahead and hammer me for points. I mean, I'm not really. No. But William Byron could be the one that gets really hurt here.
It does matter though, because Larson hasn't won a race yet. So you would expect he will, but if he doesn't, those 100 points would be a big deal.
Right, but I think obviously the Hendrick cars are going to win races.
You would think
all those guys look like they can win.
Could very potentially be the largest penalty we've seen in NASCAR or in the Cup Series, due to the fact that there's 4 teams.
Right,
and previously we haven't seen 4 teams hammered, so I don't know.
Interesting to see if they get all. I mean, if all the crew chiefs getting it kicked out, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, like, how do you cover for 4 crew chiefs? I think
do you call Chad Knaus?
Yeah, the way NASCAR does the crew chief suspensions is so freaking stupid, though. Like, they're not suspended. It's just a little bit more difficult to communicate with them. It's like they still call the race. Yeah. I mean, it's dumb.
Yep.
NASCAR should make them all go to the R&D center and sit in a room with no Wi-Fi. That's what they should do.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, lock them up.
Actually suspend the guys.
Right.
So we got that. We have the Denny Hamlin thing we're waiting on to see. What we might see this week for penalties. Could be an interesting week yet, leading into Atlanta.
Yeah, obviously whatever happens, we'll come back next week and talk about it just a little bit more in depth, but hopefully, hopefully we have some clarity here in the next, 24 hours, I would guess.
Yeah. If NASCAR does anything real crazy, we'll have an emergency pod, but I don't really expect it to be anything unprecedented. But we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We'll see.
Yep.
NASCAR is expecting a buttload of people at Chicago for the Chicago Street Race. 50,000 people a day at this race. Yeah, I don't know what to say.
Well,
it. I hope it.
I
hope it's popular.
I think so. One of the reasons I wanted to touch on this really quick is 50,000 seems like a lot down there, but I don't know. Like, this is all new, so. But a big thing that's going on right now is the Taste of Chicago is being moved from its date of, I think, 50 years downtown. It's really causing some more ruckus. NASCAR has not created itself a very warm welcome in Chicago, and I'm wondering how this whole thing is going to go, because people don't seem to be embracing it in the city, from everything I've been seeing. So part of me is wondering if this is a one and done deal, because this seems to be a little bit more messy, as we get closer to this race. It's just, it's a little messy. And also they're expecting to lose money on this race. That's another note from this article, is they're not expecting to make money off of this investment. I think that's going to have the taxpayers of Chicago very, very upset as well. So I guess it depends on
how it affects businesses and stuff in the area. If they see a positive outcome from it, I think it might turn things around. Man, this is a big undertaking to close down the center of town in Chicago. I mean, this is the reason that we don't see races in New York City. This is tough to do. And I honestly am surprised. I mean, they really bullied this through, kind of backdoored it in. Just
very quickly, very messy. It's not like, again, I hate doing this. I really do. But you look at F1 going to Las Vegas.
Right.
And that is being welcomed with open arms, man. People are loving that it's coming to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I just don't think Chicago cares for their auto racing. I mean, it just might not be the right town for NASCAR to be in.
Chicago hates everything. I mean, I'm a Bears fan. I know they hate everything. Shoot, the Bears are trying to get out of town, so I mean,
they are.
So I don't know. I can't wait till the love affair with Formula One goes away, because it's going to, James. Everybody, NASCAR had had the casual fans that got on because it was cool too, and Formula One's got that now, and it'll go away. Not that I don't have anything against Formula One, but it is definitely the popularity of Formula One is inflated right now because of that show.
Oh yeah, yep.
It's the cool thing to do.
Yep, and young people love it, and that's that's why it's popping like it is, and that's why I said I hate to compare NASCAR to Formula One, because it's not the same.
Right.
I think of NASCAR not as a national sport. I think of it more as regional, like in pockets, kind of like baseball. Formula One seems to be in an international boon right now.
Yeah, it is
of popularity, which is fine. I mean, Formula One's always been very popular in Europe. Obviously, that's its home base. It's always had struggles here, but now it's popping over in America, and it just seems like it's more I saw Formula One looking at running a street race in London, and it's not as pretty as you might think it is. But for whatever reason, here in America, we're gonna put a street circuit in Miami, and we're gonna put one in Las Vegas. And the Miami thing was pretty ugly, but nobody seemed to care because they got their F1 race.
Yeah.
NASCAR, I don't think NASCAR has that. NASCAR doesn't have that draw right now at this time. Even though more people watch it here and care about it here, the average person doesn't really care. So
part of the problem is that, NASCAR argues that their biggest market, for example, is LA, and that there's more people in LA that watch NASCAR than anywhere else. So we need to bring a race to LA, and then they put it in a stadium that seats 80,000 people, and they can't get 80,000 people there, Right. And again, so we're talking, like you said, NASCAR is, I get that it has a national popularity now, but it's still, it's a conservative sport. It is a Southern sport, and putting it in the middle of a giant city just because there are more fans there because those people live in the city doesn't equate to bringing people to the racetrack. And
I don't know. You don't, when somebody bullies you into something that you're not necessarily asking for, you're going to have a negative thought about it.
Well, and the other thing is too, James, is if everybody in Chicago, so this isn't like we're not going to Michigan International Speedway that's out in the middle of freaking nowhere in a giant field to where everybody around the track could hate the thing, but everybody's going to go to this property and they're going to camp out here in this, this, self-contained area. So they don't have to worry about everything around it. This is a racetrack in the city. If the city doesn't embrace it, if the people in the city don't embrace it, it's going to be a bad experience for the people coming into it.
Yep.
And there's nothing NASCAR can do about that.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I don't know.
Yep. So
I'm nervous about this. I'm still optimistic, James. I want it to do well as much as I want Chicagoland Speedway back. I want this to succeed. I don't want NASCAR ever to fail.
You don't want a
am I
black
skeptical.
eye. Yeah. You don't want a black eye on it.
Yeah. And the worst thing is all the stuff we're discussing has nothing to do with how the race is going to be, and that's not probably going to be good either.
Yeah. Yep. I know that's a whole nother conversation.
I don't know. I hope we're wrong. I hope this is a spectacular event. I hope people open their arms up to it. Absolutely love it. I hope the racing's good, and we go, let's do this for the next 20 years. But I don't know. I'm casually optimistic, mostly skeptical.
Sure. Yeah.
Speaking of road course races, James, Circuit of the Americas is looking pretty good. If you want some
if you want your F1,
I want some international flair. Who do we got running in the old COTA race?
Oh, just Jenson Button, Formula One world champion, Kimi Räikkönen, Jordan Taylor, and there might be a goat sighting.
Yeah.
at COTA.
An IndyCar driver is going to race it, right?
An IndyCar driver, by the name of Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, Jimmy Johnson. That sounds familiar. Johnson? I feel like I've heard that name before.
Yeah, so we got a few open cars coming in. I think Kimi is locked in though. Isn't he driving the Floyd Mayweather car, the Money Team car?
Potentially, I can't remember. I think so.
I think so. But either way, these four guys are going to try to compete, and Jimmy will probably make it. Jenson Button is god dang, that's a good get. I mean, we've had Kimi over here before. Yeah. But you know what? I think Kimi's isn't he in the Project 91 car? That's what I think. Yeah, that's where he's racing.
I don't know.
Anyway,
you put this in the notes. That's what happened.
I know, but yeah. So anyway, we got our F1 guys coming over, and we're gonna have an interesting. You know what this makes me think of, Eric? And we haven't had this in a while, but remember the era you and I grew up in where the ringers would fly in all the time to Sonoma and Watkins Glen? Got a little bit of that feel here with some of these guys coming over.
Yeah, except back then the ringers flew in expecting to win, and now I think the ringers fly in expecting to run somewhere in the midfield.
Experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Scott Pruitts and Ron Fellows of the world. Boris said, maybe most famously.
The only one of these guys that's thinking that he might have a shot at a checkered flag is that GOAT guy. And even he probably has much more realistic expectations than that.
Yeah, I think I saw him tweet that he's going to cross the track off his bucket list. Yeah. So I think Jimmy just wants to come out and have a good time.
Just a note on Jimmy Johnson, he's also going to run the Coca-Cola 600.
That's right. Yeah.
Has not announced the All-Star race yet, but is expected to compete in the All-Star race as well.
Come on. He's going to run. He never had a chance to race Wilkesboro. He's going to definitely race Wilkesboro.
Right. Is there one more that he's announced? I can't remember if there was one more.
Isn't he running? I think so. I thought he was running. I can't remember. Gosh, I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember,
but those are official. We know it's a 10 race, a projected 10 race slate for him. So the Coke 600 is definitely going to feel more like home. And honestly, save that Jimmy Johnson pick for Charlotte, because that might be a good one.
Yeah, he owned that place for about a decade.
He did. They named it Lowe's Motor Speedway, and god dang, that Lowe's car was flying.
Yeah, when they took the Lowe's sponsorship off of it, that's when he started struggling. So
he did. Well, I mean, Jimmy Johnson owned every racetrack for a little while. Dover, for God's sakes, So.
Yeah. One that's kind of slipped under the radar a little bit this week, I think. It's been mentioned a couple times, but kind of quiet. NASCAR has announced that the choose rule will now include road courses. So as we head to Circuit of the Americas in a few weeks, we will be choosing there as well. That basically means all the races in the Cup Series. I believe there's still some races in the lower series that don't, but all the Cup races will have the choose rule now. Some questions on DBC as to why we made this change now. It is kind of odd because we haven't run a road course race since they added dirt tracks and super speedways. But I'm guessing somebody complained about it, and maybe drivers said they wanted it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of this because I think if you're going to have the rule, just have the rule.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think it's going to affect much. I think you're pretty much going to slot in where you can in these road course races, but it might change things up a little bit. It gives you an option.
I mean, and if you're at COTA, for example,
yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to be on the inside? And somebody's going to gamble on the outside, but you know that first turn is just
the thing is if you think about the road courses we run, you know, maybe see Watkins Glen immediately has, you know, they go left and then they go right, then they go left. Mm-hmm. Sears Point's the same way. You know, COTA, you're heading into the S's.
Hard, yeah, you got a hard left, and then you go into the S's.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on the inside, that's great, but if you're still on the inside, as soon as you come out of that hairpin, you're screwed. So I don't know. There's definitely going to be some thought put into it. Like I said, I'm a fan of this. I think I like the choose rule. I think it should be everywhere. There you go. So we will not be waiving the caution for stage breaks, but we will be choosing.
Good.
Unless we go green, unless we go green the whole race, which we could.
I'm excited to get to COTA next week after Atlanta here. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. We had a great finish there last year, and I hope the stage breaks really change the racing just a little bit. I'm hopeful about it because I was getting tired of what we were seeing there for a while.
I hope it's dry. One thing I want to note too that speaking of that. Denny pointed out in his podcast that prior to the race at Phoenix, NASCAR told the teams to take the windshield wipers and the mud flaps off the cars.
Yep.
I think that's a great decision. I thought the Xfinity cars looked silly with that stuff on them. If there's a threat of rain, sure. But honestly, if the rain comes after the race starts, NASCAR is going to tell everybody, or they're going to wave the caution and have everybody put the stuff on them anyway. So let's just leave it off. We don't need to have it until it rains. You know, those mud flaps look silly 100%. On the cars when it's not raining.
Yeah, it looks dumb. Yeah, it's dumb.
Then they're fiddling with the stupid windshield wipers and just take them off the cars.
I know. Yeah,
so
I know. I'm glad too.
We head to Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend. It is our third time on the Super Speedway configuration. James, I'm excited. I love this track. I hope to God that it hasn't weathered too much yet and that we still have Super Speedway style racing. Because we have all three series in action this weekend, Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and Cup Series. And the second race last year, the Xfinity Series, was not quite as exciting, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens here. One thing to note about Atlanta before we go into our picks is another change that has been made, which was pointed out on Twitter by Anthony Alfredo. If you haven't seen it, they will be pitting coming into turn 3. Now the timing line and the start of pit road, the commitment line is in turn 3. So they have to ride the apron all the way around 3 and 4. Definitely going to be interesting to see if there's speeding issues running that long of a pit road. Green flag pit stops are going to be painful. I don't know that we'll have a lot of them. I don't know that we had any last year. It's definitely safer entry, I would say.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be painful, but everybody has to do it.
Which segment does Kyle Busch get the penalty in this week? That's the question.
Oh, first one. It's the first one.
Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, historic for penalties and speeding, but it's been Kyle Busch this year. A lot of speeding penalties.
Yeah, he'll probably get one. There's a handful of guys that are going to get him.
So we're coming off our picks last week. I don't really want to talk about it very much. James has a 66-point lead over me, thanks to my Eric Almirola pick that got me a whopping 4 points last week.
Yeah.
James picks Kevin Harvick last week, gets 43 points out of the deal, almost gets the win. So Atlanta Motor Speedway, because of that, I am still picking first. I was going with Willie B. That was my pick, but I don't think Byron's going to do 3 in a row, which means he will. But I don't think he will. And this is such a crapshoot race that I really don't want to throw away what is kind of a sure deal at a lot of other tracks. So I'm not going to take William Byron. Instead, I'm going to swing for the fences, James, and I'm going to go with a guy who really impressed here last year. Can't remember if he did in both races or if it was just the one. I think it was just the first one. And I'm going to throw in a Corey LaJoie pick here.
Whoa.
There you
Didn't
go.
see that one coming.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is Corey LaJoie's chance to make the playoffs right here.
This in Talladega and Daytona, absolutely.
Yep. I think this is the best one. He ran so well here in the spring last year. Was it spring?
That's good.
Or was No, that's right. It was a summer race because it wasn't in the playoffs. That's right.
Yeah.
It was a summer race.
Yep. All right, so Corey LaJoie for you.
Yep.
And so that gives me, okay, so I had two options I wanted to pick between. Man, actually I had three. Okay, so I was thinking Brad, I was thinking actually Justin Haley, but I'm gonna burn another pick here.
Okay.
That might, I'll get a chance to use him again in the playoffs, but I'm gonna burn one here. Give me Ross Chastain.
Nice. That's a good one.
Give me Ross Chastain. He had 2 top 5s.
He was really good. I definitely was looking at him, but I'm afraid to burn him too early. I threw that Kyle Larson away so early. I'm so concerned now.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't want to burn. I don't want to burn too many of them quickly, but this might be a good use of my Ross. Here, like I said, I could have gone with Justin Haley, maybe saved one, or even a Brad here, but Talladega's coming up, and if I can get to Brad there, maybe that might be a good spot. So I'm trying to think ahead. This, we're playing the game a little differently this year, so I actually really do like this because we got to strategize the whole regular season and into the playoffs.
And I feel like there's going to be a swing here because I think you're hitting right now, but I don't think you're going to be able to keep that up. And I think that I might have some opportunities later in the season. So it could be fun. There could be some pretty big swings at the end. Bubba Wallace is a good pick here. He ran really well here.
Yes.
But again, one that you maybe don't want to burn somewhere here when you can spend him at, Talladega or Michigan even. He ran really well at Michigan last year.
Yep, exactly. Kansas.
So like it's tough, man. A lot of these guys, especially this race, because it's such a crapshoot race. That's why I'm pretty confident with the Corey LaJoie pick. He's either gonna finish up front or wreck. So I mean, so far my trend is 25 or almost none. So.
Yep. Yeah. You have 2 single-digit finishes. I'm riding a streak of a couple races in the 40s. Yeah. So that's good.
It's been a disaster of a season.
Yep.
We won't mention our third member that is unofficial, and how bad they are destroying us because
they cheated the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's unofficial, so not including them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'm sure he won't like that I said that he cheated.
Just like Denny Hamlin trying to wreck Ross Chastain, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Meanwhile, Fantasy League, James, how did Fantasy League go this week?
Oh, buddy, I'm back. So you won 1 week and I won the next. I can't remember the last time that's happened, Eric.
I don't know. I got the best part was I thought I was doing really well, and then I checked the results and I was like 14th at the time, and that was before the caution.
Yeah.
And then I went backwards.
Well, my start to my campaign this year has not been very good, so it was nice to get a win. I had Harvick, I had Byron and Larson, so I was hoping to have a pretty good day at that point. But Cole Custer's last stand second, and Barron Speedway just knocking out solid finishes. He finishes third, which gives him the points lead still. He's ahead of Cole Custer's last stand. And then third place is Miska Muska Mickey Elliott. So there you go.
I fell to fifth.
Top 3. And then Eric, you're still fifth in points. And then even with that win, I am 12th. That's how. Yeah, I know. I'm off to a rough start, but you know what? If I can get lucky at Atlanta, I'll be right back in it. So gotta make up for some lost time here.
That's rough. That's rough.
Yeah, I know. Still 12th in points. That's how bad it was. My goodness.
Any shout outs this week, James?
One of our listeners and a fantasy member too, Justin, was at Phoenix and gave us a couple of nice tweets and was just kind of sharing some stuff. So I wanted to shout him out. Yeah,
definitely got to experience the red carpet and some inside the track stuff, which is pretty cool. It's always cool when somebody gets an opportunity to do that. Phoenix Raceway definitely on my list of places that I want to go because I've heard so many good things about the fan experience out there. Really want to get out there, but it's a ways off. Ways off for me.
Oh yeah.
I was trying to stall here because I was trying to remember what my shout out was, but I cannot for the life of me think of it. So I'll just, when I don't have a shout out, I'd like to shout out Dirty Mo Media because, I idolize them and hope to someday work there. Probably not, but
well, there's the guy who did the maybe that's your shout out. The guy who recreated his Dirty Mo studio.
Oh, that is pretty cool actually. On Reddit, somebody shared that they're with their son visited the Dirty Mo studio and they recreated it. The table they built looks identical to Junior's table. It's so cool. But no, Kelly Earnhardt's doing a series on Dirty Mo about the financial side of running a race team and whatnot. So that'll be a pretty cool series they're doing on there. So that's worth checking out. Anything they're doing over there at Dirty Mo is good stuff. Check it out.
Yep. Yeah, I saw Tony Stewart just did an interview where he said how much it costs per race car, and $500,000.
Yeah, that's
insane.
insane.
And he was not quite sure. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Kelly has to say as well, because I'm sure she's got plenty of insight. I mean, she's been in, people think of her as Dale's sister.
Yeah.
But she's been in the business for.
She's the brains in that operation. That's for sure.
Oh, dude. Yeah, she's a heavy hitter in the industry. Don't be fooled by the last name, and who she really is.
Well, she's been responsible for the contracts the Junior signed. I mean, she's done. His, her first. I forget the guy's name, but her first guest is going to be the president over at 2311. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. How about black flags, James? Any black flags this week?
I was gonna black flag myself for being super salty, just completely, just salty.
Nice.
So I'll do that for now. Sometimes every once in a while I'm gonna throw myself an L.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna black flag everybody bitching about stuff, and I'll include myself in that as well, because I've done my share of bitching this season about things, bitching about Fox, bitching about Danica, bitching about whatever. Let's just stop bitching and enjoy the racing. Enjoy the fact the season started back up. We're in the swing of things now. The West Coast swing is over. Into the meat of the season now. Let's enjoy it. Look at the positives and be happy that cars are on the track. This few years ago, James, this was the week that we shut down for 10 weeks due to COVID.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was.
And before that, we did not know what it would be like to lose 10 weeks of NASCAR, and we were lucky that our sport was the first one to come back. Yep. We had to watch video games on TV for 10 weeks.
Yeah, we were very thankful, weren't we?
Yeah. So let's just be happy we've got NASCAR. We've got full stands. Dude, 3 of the first 4 weeks were sold out for the Cup Series.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I'm skeptical going in Atlanta this weekend because the crowds really haven't shown up there. I hope they do, and I hope the weather's good, and they can have some good racing out there. But let's stop bitching and just enjoy the show.
I was gonna say too, we've been doing this podcast now 6 years. Yesterday was our 6 years, and now obviously my thoughts on this whole thing has been positive, and if we can I know we have our moments and we like to let it out. That's why we do this.
Well, and I'm not saying we can't criticize things. We can definitely criticize things. It makes everything better.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. My experience with this is fun. I hope people listening to it have fun. And if you're listening to this, you definitely like the sport.
Yeah.
And hopefully that comes through. So
that's why we're here. We love NASCAR. We love motorsports. And just, we're here because we're fans. Yep. We want the product to be the best it can be. And so sometimes there's going to be criticism, and sometimes we're going to bitch about stuff we shouldn't be bitching about. So
for sure.
One more shout out I wanted to throw out there. I can't remember if I shouted them out yet this year or not, but Owasso Speedway here in Michigan, they are doing some major updates out there. They're putting safer barriers in over the next couple of years. They're redoing the grandstands. They're putting extra concrete walls in. They just posted today or yesterday that they got the new Wheeling flashing caution lights that they're putting up out there. Those things are beautiful. They said they're like 4 feet wide or whatever. This is a historic. So I've never been to Owasso Speedway. This is a historic track though in Michigan. A lot of great drivers have raced through there. I'm pretty sure Brad Keselowski and Eric Jones both raced out there. A lot of the big drivers in Michigan have raced through, and in NASCAR in general, even that aren't from Michigan, have raced through this track. They've got new owners over there that are putting some money into the place, and their goal is to make it essentially the asphalt Eldora in Michigan, and I think they're on the right track right now. Hopefully people show up and support what they're doing. I will be showing up and supporting a bunch of their races this year. One of their announcers out there is somebody I worked with at Tri-City Motor Speedway, Roger. Shut Up Roger, if you're familiar with him here locally. He does a great job. I like to give him crap, but he'll do terrific out there. Love what they're doing at Owasso Speedway. Can't wait to get out there and watch a race this year. And just
great racetrack.
Anytime somebody's putting money and effort into motorsports is just terrific. And, I worked at a dirt track for several years out at Tri-City Motor Speedway, but I am an asphalt guy, and to see asphalt tracks, seeing a resurgence here in Michigan is just awesome. So,
yeah, I love that place, and it's one of those things where you walk in, you're like, holy cow, it's banked that much,
right?
You can really tell. I mean, I remember being a little kid and I thought that place was huge, and it's not a very big place, but
yeah.
When you're a kid, all these places are huge, and I just remember that was my first experience walking into that place. Was holy cow, this is huge. I spent a lot of time in the pits there.
Yeah.
Over my youth, so I have a lot of good memories at Owasso.
I am actually strongly considering. I have some NASCAR plans this year, but I am strongly considering foregoing several of those NASCAR plans and spending a lot of my summer at Owasso, Birch Run,
that'd be great,
Berlin, and Corgan Oil Speedway here in Michigan, just supporting those tracks and watching some good short track local racing. So. We'll see what happens this summer. Great. I know it'll be a lot cheaper to do that than go to the NASCAR. But we'll still be following the NASCAR thing every week and still doing the podcast. So, there you go. And I'll hit Michigan for sure this year. So.
Oh yeah.
But there you go. James, where can people hit you up on social media if they want to chat with you during the week?
At James Cush on Twitter.
You can find me at TSuperSpeedway on Twitter. I haven't been very active during the off season, but I'm starting to get active on there again. I was retweeting some stuff today. So Elon hasn't killed it yet. So far there's still Twitter there. Podcast is, man. Yeah. Podcast is on Facebook at facebook.com/thesuperspeedway. Our website is thesuperspeedway.com. You can find I'm going on the old script. The old script isn't accurate anymore because you can't find old episodes of the podcast on there. But you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and Anchor. Subscribe for new episodes each week. If you go to anchor.fm/thesuperspeedway, you can leave us an audio message and we may play it on the show. Whatever you want to say, if you want to give us crap, if you want to talk smack about the fantasy league, if you want to bash Fox's broadcast. I know I said quit bitching, but go ahead and bitch on there. We will take it all day long. We'll play it on the air. And you're going to be a part of the show. James, we go to Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend, the high banks of Atlanta Motor Speedway, super speedway style racing on a 1.5-mile track. NASCAR Xfinity Series, Truck Series, and Cup Series, all in action. We'll be back right here next week to break it all down and talk about everything that happened. Until then, everybody, let's go racing.